Hi everyone, today we're going to talk about how you can organize your persuasive speech. If you remember back to our vision for future speech, I told you that there are a number of ways you can organize different speeches, and it's not always going to be that thesis. It's not always going to be that 5-paragraph essay structure that we're taught when we're young. So now we're getting into some more sophisticated modes of organization that you might not have learned about before. Some of them should be familiar because I did bring them up in the vision for my future speech, but some of these would be new because when you're dealing with persuasion, you're really dealing with argument and logic. And we're going to be spending some time getting into those topics later, but we're talking about inductive versus deductive reasoning. And depending on what type of audience you have, what your topic is, whether it's fact, belief, or policy, certain organizational methods work better than others. So deductive reasoning, if you think of deduction and when you have to deduce something, you work from general to the more specific. This is the top-down approach. So this is very broad, and then you work your way to a specific conclusion. Inductive is the opposite. You work from specific observations to broader generalizations and theories, and it's a more bottom-up approach. And to illustrate this, I have our approaches broken down into different categories. So your deductive approaches would be the statement of reasons method, problem solution, problem cause solution, and comparative analysis. So think about your topic and think about your argument as I go through these, and try to decide what method would work best for you and your topic and what you're trying to achieve here in this speech. So first of all, the statement of reasons, each main point will present a reason why the audience should agree with the speaker. This is really good for questions of fact and value. This is your traditional thesis statement, 3 body paragraphs, boom, you're done. So this is what you know how to do. You know how to do the statement of reasons. Reason number 1, reason number 2, reason number 3. That is your basic structure. And I'm not saying that structure is bad. I'm just saying that there are other options, especially when it comes to public speaking and argument. Problem solution. This would be a policy speech. So a lot of you will naturally gravitate toward this because we're dealing with addressing the school board or the building administration about something you want to change or something you want to stay the same. And I'll show you that structure too. So the first main point, you show the need for the new policy. You prove the existence of a problem. And then your second main point presents the plan. How do you solve the problem and demonstrate that it's practical? For example, if you are bringing up a problem with the current hybrid model, or you have some sort of solution to a problem that you see in the school, sometimes it's easy to prove the existence of a problem, and you're focusing more on your plan and why it's practical. So, it also depends on your audience too. If you have a favorable audience or a hostile audience, your approach might be different. If your audience is favorable to the existence of the problem, you'll spend more on the second bullet point. Then you have the problem solution if you're arguing, if you're opposing. So your first main point would show that there's no need for change. And the second main point would show that even if there were a need, the proposed policy will not solve it and create serious problems of its own. This is the approach that a lot of the students, I think all of the students, took in the school board speeches that you either watched with me or you chose to watch on your own. There's no need for change. And then they wanted to keep the hybrid model, but they acknowledged that there was a need, there were problems with it, but bringing us back 5 days would not solve and would create serious problems of its own. So if you apply this to the student speeches that we watched, this is what they did. And they probably didn't even know that they were doing that because this is what makes sense for certain things. Then you have the problem cause solution. This just throws in, if it's relevant, the cause of the problem. And that might be necessary to your argument. It might not. That's why it's separate from problem solution. So first you would show the existence of the problem, and then you analyze the cause, and then you present the solution. So that could be an approach to your speech. And then you have the comparative advantage. And like I said, this is most effective when you know your audience agrees with you that there is a need for change. So if you know everybody in your audience agrees that we need to get rid of standardized testing, let's just throw that out there. You know you're speaking to a group of people who agree with you. What do? You devote each main point to explaining why your plan is preferable. Like, what do we do if we get away? Like, what do we do if we do away with standardized testing? What plan do you have to show learning, to show accountability? Like, how are you going to address like the needs that would be like that you'd still need to address if standardized testing was gone? So that's comparative advantages, and those are all deductive approaches. And then inductive approaches would be the criteria satisfaction method, the negative method, and Monroe motivated sequence. With all of the deductive approaches, your argument is clear from the beginning. Like, there are no surprises. So inductive works really well if you know you have to get people on your side. So criteria satisfaction, this is good for value and policy. You establish your standards for the value judgment. So say, for example, you are arguing, I'll go back to my death penalty example, that the death penalty is moral or immoral. So you're gonna set the standards for morality, and then you're going to apply your death penalty argument to those standards. So if we all agree that this is the definition of what it means to be moral, this is how the death penalty does or does not uphold those criteria. And here's an example. This is actually from the speech book itself. And here are the criteria for class president. I mean, this is pretty cheesy, but, and here's how this woman, Ann Welch, meets all of those criteria. So that's just a simple example of criteria satisfaction method. And then you have the negative method. This works really well with hostile audience. You show in your speech that no option other than the one you propose is acceptable. Now, you have to be careful with this because we haven't talked about logical fallacies and propaganda. But with this method, it's really, really easy to set up straw man arguments where you set up really weak arguments for for the opposing viewpoints and knock them down. So be careful with this one. It can be done well, but it does open the door to a lot of faulty logic sometimes. And then you have Monroe motivated sequence. And this goes into the psychology of persuasion. Step 1, gain the attention of the audience. Step 2, show the need for change. Step 3, present a plan that will remedy the need. 4, visualize benefits and practicality and urge the audience to take action. This would be really good if if we had time to watch an example speech for every one of these, I might post some for help, like once you do pick your organizational structure. But this would be what Jamie Oliver used in his speech that we watched. He gained the attention of the audience. He showed the need for change. He presented his plan, teach every student about food in school, visualize the benefits, and urge the audience to take action. That's what he did. We didn't watch the rest of the speech, but trust me, that's what he did. So what your goal is now, and I'll have these slides, and I'll have some example. I'll put many examples as I can so you can see. You want to think about your topic, and you want to pick an organizational structure that you can use. Which one, as I was talking, jumped out at you as being the most practical? And now I'm getting interrupted by my safeguard. Now it's only going to do it once. Nope, there it is. Normally it does it 3 times and then it stops. But think about these things. The slides will be posted. Separate graphic organizers will be posted, outline templates, and whatever jumps out at you as being the easiest is the one you should use. And your assignment is just to pick one and explain. So think about these, go through these slides again. You can watch this video 100 times if you want, but I'll post the slides too so you can just read through them and come up with an idea. And if you have any questions, if you're not sure, send me an email. I'll look at your topic and help you come up with something. So good luck.